The Nintendo Switch 2 is the talk of the town lately, with it being the fastest selling game console ever in the history of gaming. Many players, both old and new, are looking for titles and experiences to play on their recently brought system that they've never played before. This brings us to Japanese role-playing games. They really need no introduction when it comes to their rich history, providing value to the players with their incredible stories and journeys that have you feel invested as you progress through these worlds. Which is why today we'll be taking a look at some JRPGs that you can play on the Switch 2 that are some of the very best that this genre has to offer. We'll be looking at some casual JRPGs which are great for newcomers looking into getting into this genre, alongside some more hardcore titles that may have skipped your radar when they originally released for veteran fans. But one quick footnote before we begin, every game here will be spoiler free of course, with only vague comments being made on certain narratives shown in this video. And with all that out of the way, let's take a look at some incredible JRPG experiences that the Switch 2 has to offer. Kicking off this video is actually the latest JRPG to be released on the Switch 2, that being RAIDOU Remastered, The Mystery of the Soulless Army. For a lot of people, myself included, this new remaster of the PlayStation 2 original is their first introduction to this forgotten title. RAIDOU has you playing as the 14th detective from a rich lineage who has to figure out this mystery involving a missing girl and these strange red-caped individuals. This JRPG is unique in how it's part detective game and part action RPG. When it comes to combat, despite the series' reputation for being difficult, RAIDOU is surprisingly beginner-friendly and accessible. There are now multiple difficulty options alongside convenient autosaves, and as long as you prioritise attacking enemy weaknesses like in series tradition, combat can be fairly straightforward to pick up and understand. It's also quite refreshing playing a Mega 10 game that isn't turn-based and shows that there is a place for these types of JRPGs. In traditional Shin Megami Tensei style, you'll be negotiating with demons to have them aid you in battle, alongside fusing your fellow allies to create more stronger demons. Where RAIDOU differentiates itself from titles like Shin Megami Tensei and Persona is how you can have your demons accompany you in the real world, using them to solve puzzles and further discover clues when it comes to cracking the main mystery. When playing this game for the first time, I really appreciated the level of detail crafted into its Taisho-inspired Japan-themed world, with it taking place in the 1930s. Despite being fictional, similar to the Yakuza series, the developers went all out in having it feel like a living breathing place inside Japan, which can feel very immersive at times. There really is something to be said about the PlayStation 2 era JRPGs that just has a certain charm to them when it comes to their presentation. I kinda miss when games used to look like this. RAIDOU truly is a JRPG unlike no other. Add on to the fact that the Switch 2 provides a high quality portable experience that you can take anywhere with you, and you have an amazing JRPG with a gripping mystery angle that for me personally has kept me more than invested to see things through.
That said, the murderer must be among us.
Next up, we'll be looking at a game that released alongside the Switch 2, that being Bravely Default Flying Fairy HD. This is definitely a pick for veterans of this genre. As a love letter to classic JRPGs, Bravely Default truly pulls no punches when it comes to just how challenging it is. It's a traditional turn-based JRPG, however its main gimmick and the game's namesake has you switching between braving an attack or defaulting. When braving, you can take up to 4 additional moves during a turn. Imagine being able to cast heal 4 times in just one turn for instance. On the opposite side of things, we have defaulting, which lets you store a turn and defend the enemy's next attack. What this results in is an incredibly deep combat system where with the right setup and planning you can tear through enemies in just one turn, where mastering these mechanics centered around playing defensively and offensively. Add on to the fact that similar to titles like Dragon Quest III or Final Fantasy VIII, party members can mix and match any role you could possibly want, and you have a massively customizable experience which can vary significantly between different players' playthroughs. Story-wise, from what I can gather online, the community seems a bit mixed on this one. Personally, I found it's more of a journey over destination type of narrative. Although, I can at least appreciate how it attempts to use certain narrative devices that you don't typically see in JRPGs, which whilst the execution of it is questionable, the attempt is admirable at least. The smaller party lineup does also allow for more focus on each of the characters as you find out how they all tie into the main story, which is an aspect I did enjoy through the game's pretty lengthy runtime. A shout out is also deserving of the side quests in this game. They flesh out the world very well, and like the main campaign is also fully voice acted with a talented lineup of voice actors. The side quests will also reward you with more classes to unlock, which will further strengthen your team lineup as a whole, which is a great gameplay loop. It kind of reminds me of defeating a robot master in Mega Man and gaining their abilities. The Switch 2 remaster also adds in some quality of life improvements, such as the ability to adjust the encounter rate alongside being able to fast forward combat, which definitely helps when it comes to learning each class for the party members. Overall, Bravely Default Flying Fairy HD is ideal for those that prefer a more retro-inspired, combat-oriented JRPG that's filled with customization. If I was to sit back and judge all the JRPGs in this video individually, this will by far be the most unique entry here. We have a more underground and unconventional entry for our next game with Moon Remix RPG Adventure, originally released in 1997 on the original PlayStation and localized to modern systems in 2019. Moon is one of the first RPGs ever to flip the script on its head. This game is more of a commentary or parody of traditional JRPGs and questions certain design decisions and tropes often associated with the genre. Moon's presentation is incredible, blending together all kinds of art styles. Compliments also have to be given to its out there soundtrack that incorporates different kinds of genres. This game really takes you on a trip. The game begins with a boy playing a JRPG, which is clearly supposed to be Dragon Quest. However, he eventually gets sucked into this fictional game and gets to see the world from a different perspective, and is no longer just a player in this story. Moon is more about being an NPC in the literal sense, as you see the destruction the main character is doing to this game's world, such as attacking creatures for experience points and looting people's houses. If you're familiar with titles like Majora's Mask, you'll feel right at home with Moon, as it's mostly known for its side quests and well written NPCs. There's no actual combat in Moon, with it instead being about leveling up through helping other characters and saving the creatures of this land by bringing life back to them. One of the most well-known facts about this title is how it was the biggest inspiration behind the indie sensation Undertale. If you're a fan of that game, there's a chance you probably never knew Moon existed. It's an extremely niche release, but it's one you'll never forget. There really is no other experience quite like it. Moon for me personally comes with a huge recommendation. It's a standout release, and if you're a fan of this genre already, you'll appreciate how the creators of this game put all their love and passion for the genre into this unique blend that breaks down JRPGs that were popular from the 80s and 90s. Any JRPG and or Nintendo fan already knows about the Xenoblade series. It's the definitive series for any newcomer of the genre, and it's the perfect gateway lineup for those looking into trying these kinds of games. But that begs the question, which Xenoblade game will be perfect to play on the Switch 2? Well, at the risk of spoiling a previous video of mine, I'll just say it how it is. Hands down, in my opinion, the best Xenoblade game out there is all the more perfect with the recently released Xenoblade X Definitive Edition. This entry is very likely to get the Switch to upgrade treatment anytime soon if these posts and data mines are anything to go by. Regardless of that point however, Xenoblade Chronicles X is a jaw-droppingly gorgeous game which will have you wondering just how it was originally released almost 10 years ago. The Definitive Edition adds all new content, improved graphics, more party members and side quests on top of an entire epilogue added to the already pretty stacked base game. In Xenoblade X, you're the last hope for humanity as you evacuate from planet Earth. As the final remains of human civilization, you crash land on an alien planet and are forced to survive against the many other life forms across planet Mirror. It's no secret, but without the incredible talent at Monolith Soft pulling off this beautiful open world, we never would have had Breath of the Wild, since they also went on to make that game. But Xenoblade X has something special about it, something so unique and bold as a concept that no other open world game can possibly compete with it. That's right, mechs. You can fly and glide around this world using skills, with them being the greatest mount I've ever seen in an open world game and really complements navigation. Combat is also pretty unique, with it being an action JRPG, having you balance cooldowns and attacking specific weak points of an enemy. There are also many optional party members you can encounter who you can have join you on your journey, allowing for many different ways to customize your party lineup. There really is so much to say about Xenoblade X to have as a mere section in this video, but if you're looking for an incredible JRPG with tons of replay value, this is more than ideal. Also, if you're a Xenoblade fan who has never played this entry, you owe it to yourself to give this one a try. It's my personal favourite as a fan of the series. Anyway, I'll have to move on from this one since I could easily talk about it all day. Capping off this video is a JRPG series that I've made no secret on this channel that I'm a huge fan of. That's right, the Legend of Heroes games, more specifically with the Trails to Zero and Azure installments from this series. With the highly anticipated announcement of the Sky First Chapter remake, what better way could you complement this experience than with the crossbow duology? When it comes to play order, this series is always best played from the beginning of course, since all the games are heavily tied into one another. However, as someone who has experienced every localized title, I do think it's possible to start here since many of the events take place in the state of Crossbell away from where the first arc of the series takes place. You play as Lloyd Bannings, who joins the SSS, which is the Special Support Section. This is essentially a group of police officers who act separate from their officials and deal with the more morally grey and shady cases happening throughout Crossbell. The Trails series is known for its dense amounts of world building, and the longest games by far on this list would then be more of a slow burn. It's more about soaking in each chapter and getting to know the many colourful characters that make up the world of Liberoral. But let me just say, as a fan of this series, regardless of where you choose to start, that investment you get from seeing certain narrative threads tie into one another and reach their conclusion is unlike any other piece of media I've experienced before. You will have plenty of time to see these characters develop naturally alongside the very nation of Crossbell itself as you see the politics of the nation clash with the other regions surrounding it. This recommendation does come with a few footnotes however. The first being, as previously stated, these aren't short experiences. Once you're in, be ready for what is possibly the longest narrative of any game out there, and maybe even the longest piece of media ever created. The other is that these two games are technically the 4th and 5th installments of the Trails series. It's best to bear in mind that certain plot points from other games both past and future are brought up here which will be relevant later on. I mainly recommend these games over the others since they can be decent starting points. But also, since with the remake of First Chapter, I'm assuming that they'll eventually remake the entire trilogy at some point, so it's probably best to wait until those titles are out since they'll likely be the best versions. The art direction of First Chapter's remake honestly just looks incredible. Anyway, in the meantime, you really can't go wrong with the Crossbell duology whether you're a newcomer to JRPGs or are looking for more from this genre. But now, I'm curious, what are some JRPGs coming out on the Switch 2 that you're looking forward to? Are there any that you'd recommend? Feel free to let me know in the comment section. Also, any feedback on this video will be appreciated. Thank you so much for watching and I hope you have a nice rest of your day.